Hello everybody, my name is Frank Perrin. Welcome back to Al-Asad, House of the Lion. And today we're here to discuss an often forgotten about weapon in the arsenal of Persian, Turkish, and Indian warriors. One that a lot of people sometimes tend to associate strictly with that of European warriors, but actually appears in a lot of surviving artifacts as well as some miniatures from that of India, Turkey, Persia, and the areas that uh, those groups controlled. And that, as I'm talking about, is the Warhammer, right? The Warhammer is a weapon that people often associate, right, with those regions because people often associate with European knights because of their heavy plate armor. And the Warhammer was created as a weapon, well, to bypass armor, whether or not you are using the front to crush or you're using the back to pick and pierce. Right, the Warhammer was optimized for defeating armor. Oftentimes in Europe, you do see it as a single-handed weapon. In this case, in surviving examples from the Middle East and India, you do find two-handed examples like this, or maybe even one-handed if you have the strength to throw them. But upon me feeling this one, I prefer the idea of two-handing it over single-handing it. So what makes these really fascinating is that, first off, they take a much different shape um, than other Warhammers from parts of Europe. Secondly, is their use, right? I think there tends to be a misconception in pop culture that in the Middle East they didn't have heavy armor, they didn't have plate armor. Well, it's about context and it's about warfare of the region, right? So by the time you see these Warhammers popping up, you see, for example, Charanye, you have Zara Bakhtar, you have Krug armor, right, which are these large pieces of steel that are interconnected by chain. I'm going to go ahead and put those on the screen that give you a reminder. Right, so that armor is considered the heaviest armor of the region. Sure, it is not like European armor that is full plates covering all of these openings, but it didn't have to be because Middle Eastern warfare was built a little bit more around speed and mobility. So it's only natural that eventually anti-armor weapons like the Warhammer are going to develop. They're going to. Um, because this was the heaviest armor of the region. And in order to bypass that armor, it was useful to have weapons like the Warhammer. Now, I can't really speak to influence and where it was derived from, but some of these that you see do pop up in Ottoman arsenals before anywhere else, and it would make sense that maybe they picked that up from their interactions with other Eastern Europeans, right? Or it could have been an individual development, but for the sake of this, let's just say it did get picked up with interacting with other Eastern European warriors who also used Warhammers, right? But regardless, um, this does show indication that people in the Middle East did see their type of armor as a heavy armor, as a full plate armor. That is their equivalent of full plate armor. Um, but regardless of that, you're going to have a weapon that will bypass it. And some things that I was thinking about, right, with this weapon when I was experimenting around with it, is a couple things. The size of this head could make it possible to single hand off of horseback if you needed to with people on the ground. Um, Secondly, you can also two-hand this if you need to, being able to strike with the hammer end, and then you also got this pick, which can be used to pick through helmets, but also if you think right about the openings in that armor, right, and the Charanye, the Krug, they've got all these joints made out of chain, right? All the joints may have chains. They're real easy to move around in. Well, but what better way to bypass that chain and to stop someone's movement than taking the pick and aiming for those gaps, aiming to where the chain hinges on the shoulder, aiming to where it hinges on the neck, pulling, and coming back and hitting with the top end of it, right? So, if anything, this kind of Warhammer and its design, to me, specifically makes sense with the armor of the region at the time. You get the ability to use this hook to come out on top from a distance, get into those gaps in the rings, pull people into you, try to tear the chain open, right? This hook here of the spike part makes sense that you'd have to have something a little more downward curved to get into those openings. So, yeah, this is just a little bit of a quick talk about Warhammers of the Middle East. I'll go ahead and bring it up here a little bit closer. It's a really neat design. It's got this twisted steel, which I'm sure is just an aesthetic choice. But when I picked this up, I specifically picked it up because of this hammerhead right here, right? And this does follow the historic examples that I put in the video, as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff I'm gonna have fun playing around with on this, like using the spike to come into the gaps here. There's also a nice way to hook forearms with this, right? Controlling limbs, controlling people's shoulders, right? Hooking around the back of the neck to force some compliance, right? There's a lot of good fun stuff that you can do with a Warhammer like this. So this is just kind of my quick introduction to these Warhammers. If you have any idea of how else they could have been used or their context of creation, I look forward to you putting them down in the comments. So this has been Frank Perrin from Al-Asad, House of the Lion. As always, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.